This is WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM. And we have with us at WZRD via Zoom, Lace Larrabee. She's a comedian and we're very lucky that she is in Chicago. Welcome, Lace. How are you today?
Hi, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, first of all, tell us about how you started out in comedy. What inspired you to choose this path, and how did you find your voice?
Oh, wow. I think so many things in my life led me to comedy, but I guess the simplest answer is, we had it rough when I was growing up. My parents had me as teenagers, and we had to laugh to get through everything, and my parents are very funny and they're very good at making light of bad situations. And I kind of grew up with that mentality of let's laugh it off and get through it. And eventually I found stand up after years of acting and doing other stuff. It just kind of was the thing. I got on stage and told jokes and people laughed and I said, "Oh, this is where I belong." So never looked back. It's been 12 years professionally now.
Did you have any official training, let's say in acting or in comedy?
Actually, no. And what's funny about that is, I mean, I probably, I guess for acting, yeah, I took some acting classes here and there when I was younger, and then went to school for it a little bit in college, but ended up ultimately getting a degree in communications. Um, and then for stand up, though, no, I just jumped on stage. I had to learn the hard way. You got to learn from just being in front of crowds and seeing what works and, studying on your own. But I actually teach a stand up comedy class in Atlanta. So I started my own classes like 6.5 years ago. And I've taught like 600 people how to do stand up. So I'm a big fan of taking stand-up comedy classes, obviously, but I think I could have learned a lot quicker if I would have started in a class.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
you tour so much, and
Yeah.
how do you find the time to teach?
Oh, so in between. So my classes usually when they run on like Tuesday nights or on Sundays. So I'm able to like make sure I can tour on the weekends and then teach classes when I'm back in Atlanta. So I try to make it all work out. And then I also have a team of really great, smart comics in Atlanta who teach with me and for me as well. So we got a whole little college going on down here.
So it's like an in-person class instead of virtual. It's actual. Yeah, you can't really do comedy virtual. It's much more effective, like the visual cues and physical cues, right? In person.
For sure. Oh my gosh, you hit the nail on the head. Like over the pandemic, we tried to do some stand-up classes over Zoom and it just not, you're exactly right. It's the physical cues. It's seeing people's eyeballs. It's seeing what is actually working in the room. It's just not as funny either. I mean, you can watch comedy on Zoom and be like, "Oh, I get what that is. I get that joke or that makes sense," but nothing is like the room and the smells and the sounds and all the things around you. So you got to take all that in. But what we did instead is we do some online classes, and those are like writing classes. So we do like a sitcom pilot writing
Mm.
class, sketch comedy writing, that kind of stuff is way easier to do over Zoom than it is stand up.
Mhm. When you began, when let's say the first time you stepped on stage and decided to do comedy, do you still remember what joke you used and what happened?
Oh, I'll never forget. I mean, it changed my life really doing it. I that first time I was given way too much time on stage. Like you should never, your first time on stage, you should never do more than 5 minutes, and even 5 minutes is long. And I was given a 10-minute spot, which just not smart on the behalf of the person who booked me. But I did like 8.5 minutes that night, and I wrote a bunch of jokes. I knew I was going to do the show for like 3 months, and I didn't write jokes until the night before. Big mistake. Um, but yeah, one of the first jokes I ever wrote was a joke I ended up doing on America's Got Talent last year. So it's still one of my favorite jokes. It was pretty easy. It's just about my name because no one ever thinks my name is my real name. And so I was like, yes, Lace is my name. Let's get it out of the way. It's my real name. It's not a stage name. People want a good story for it. I don't have one. It's just the name you get when your parents are 17 when they have you. And then I
Your
follow
parents
up.
never told you why they called you named you Lace?
Yeah, my mom, she just wanted a very feminine name. She didn't realize that everybody for the next, 30 plus years was gonna go, oh, lace like panties. So she didn't think about that. But yeah, she just wanted a pretty feminine name, and she was a teenager. She thought it was cute. And I love it now. I think it's a great name.
Mhm. Very memorable. When
Thank you.
you when you were on the stage the first time, so did you get a positive response from the audience? Did they know that it was like a beginner's night, and were they accommodative?
Oh, they were very accommodative. They were incredible. And it wasn't really, that whole show wasn't really a beginner's show or like an open mic. Because I worked at a bar at the time, there was a regular there who was booking shows, and he knew I was going to just talk about it forever and never do it. So he just booked me on a show. So
Mhm.
the people that were there for me, I invited all of my bartender, restaurant friends at the time. And, they knew it was my first time, but the rest of the audience, I don't think knew it was. And they were all very supportive. I mean, the people who were drunk and there for me and hooping and hollering, like they loved it. And then the people who didn't were like, oh, you were pretty good for first time. It's definitely an embarrassing video now when I watch back, but it wasn't bad. It wasn't that bad.
Was it your experience with bartending? Bartenders always have to think on their feet, and they have to address every situation and make the customers happy. Did that help you in your stand-up comedy?
Oh, 100%. I always say that. I mean, all the years I spent bartending before and during the beginning of stand up, that was the precursor. That was the whole precursor to doing this. I have funny family. I'm fun with my friends, that kind of stuff. I did beauty pageants for years, and I would be the goofy one backstage, always like making jokes. But bartending, that's what makes you better at dealing with people, right? You got to kind of be a smart ass. You got to be quick. You've got to be able, like you said, you got to keep them happy, but also keep them in their place too. People get rowdy, and you got to be able to keep them down, but not make them mad.
Hmm.
So I think that's a super important skill with stand up. And a lot of stand up comedians, most of them that I meet, either worked in restaurants or so at some point, or still do. So it definitely keeps you on your toes for sure.
Is it safer for you to joke about your subjects rather than on other subjects like politics? I watched a lot of your videos, and you really haven't touched on politics much.
Well, I don't put out all my material online by any means. I mean, I think most of us don't because, we want to save something for the stage when
Mm-hmm.
people see us. I mean, I make a couple comments here and there about social stuff. I definitely slide in my opinions on some things in certain topics, but politics are so in our real lives outside of stand up, it's so invasive, it's so stressful, it's something that causes rifts in families and relationships. And honestly, in a comedy club, I would rather just be self-deprecating, be funny, make people laugh and forget about all the BS of the day, so I'm not really trying to get in there and like make a difference. There's so many other good political comics who do a great job with that, and that's their full-time job, and I'll leave that to them. But I like to I'm a big old feminist, and I like to make sure I get in my opinions here and there, and that people know kind of where I stand. But I still don't want to alienate anybody in the audience.
Mhm. And what about your material? Did it derive because sometimes the way you explain situations, did any of this derive from being bullied and then addressing that?
Yeah, I definitely dealt with some light bullying when I was a kid. It was pretty ironic because for part half of my childhood, I lived in a single wide trailer, and I lived in a trailer in an area that people had money, like it was a little wealthier area. So I got picked on for being trailer trash.
Mhm.
And then when I was finally like we finally got to buy a brick house and like live in a house, we moved to South Georgia in an area that was a little bit more poor and it just wasn't as wealthy. So we finally lived in a house, but then everybody there was like, you're too good for us. You're too rich. You're too fancy to be. And I was like, I can't we just can't win. Like it was either it was either I was trailer trash or I thought I was too good for people. And really I was just so thankful to live in a house that was attached to the ground for the
Mhm.
first time in my life. So yeah, I like to take some, because then you grow up and you meet those people in real life and you realize everybody's just coming from a place of insecurity ultimately when they're bullying anybody else. And yeah, I like to turn that stuff into jokes and I'm past it. I'm only bitter about current stuff. So
When when you talk about your family and friends and all that, in your jokes, do you tell them about it first? Do you ask their permission, or do you just go ahead and do it?
oh, they all know. I mean, it's not most of the things I come up with and talk about on stage, it's something that I came up with those people. Like you're in a situation with your girlfriends and you're something comes up and it's funny and they go like that's hilarious, write that down, talk about that on stage. So yeah, everybody knows what I do for a living, and um nothing's ever a surprise. I wouldn't bring something up that somebody wasn't comfortable with me talking about, for sure. Yeah,
Hmm.
they're in on it for the most part. I mean, and if I ever talk about somebody who's like from the past and I couldn't ask them about something, I'll just kind of change either their name or the situation a little bit, you just because you you know, don't want to
Right.
get into that area. But yeah, I only talk about people who would be cool with it.
Hmm. And right now, you don't have to bartend anymore, right? You're making enough so that you don't have to bartend, or maybe you still enjoy it and get some material from that.
Honestly, I mean, I'm not in no way, shape, or form do I think that I am too good to do that anymore. I would in a heartbeat. I am constantly keeping that in the back of my mind that is the backup plan. If all this fails eventually, then I'm happy to go back to working in bars. But no, I've been very blessed that for the past I'm going on 8+ years now. I've just been able to live full time as a stand-up comedian. I teach classes and then I travel and do this, and it's the best job in the world, easily.
But your friend said that you kept on saying that you would do it. What
Hmm.
was the spark for you to even start saying that you would do stand up?
Well, I love it. I was as a kid. I don't know about you. I don't know if you ever watched. Did you ever watch like Saturday Night Live or any stand-up comedians like when you were younger?
Yes.
Yeah, I loved that stuff. I thought I just never knew, when you're a kid and you're watching TV and you're like, "Oh, that's so cool." You don't know that that's a real opportunity, that can actually happen. That one day you can get on stage and hold a microphone and tell people your feelings. Like I didn't know, but I always dreamed. I guess it was just one of those like far off dreams of like how cool would that be to command an audience that way and tell your jokes and be real and be raw and I don't know. I always dreamed about it. And so I would consume a lot of stand-up comedy. I would go to a lot of shows and pay money to watch people. And I still love, well, I mean, when I'm not on stage, I'm watching whoever else is on stage. I still love it. I love stand-up. I think it's definitely my favorite form of storytelling for sure.
How did you find your voice when you were on America's Got Talent? You
Hmm.
were practically in a conversation with the judges instead of performing, but you were performing, so you
Yeah.
have a very unique voice. How did you find that voice?
Oh, thank you. Oh, I appreciate that. That was a really magical moment, by the way, of like getting to perform for them and then have Sofia Vergara interrupt me and like ask me questions. Like it was, and then to be able to react back and forth. It is, I mean, it's definitely it's a natural skill, but it's a honed skill too. When you do this enough and you do it long enough, you're on stage I'm on stage almost every single night. I'm so used to that back and forth with an audience that it just happened. And that just showed me that, it was the right time in my career for me to be on that show because I was prepared for any kind of interruption. So yeah, I think finding your voice is it's all in getting comfortable, and you only get comfortable from more and more experience.
Mhm. So your subject matter, even in the beginning, was this kind of your subject matter? Did it ever change?
I've kind of always stuck to the same. I mean, I've got the same sense of humor I've always had. I've taken some risks here and there with like different subjects. just to see what I can get out of it. But honestly, I stick to what makes me laugh and what I observe around me. And if I notice that like something that I'm dealing with every day that's annoying is something I know other people are dealing with every day, then I'll write about that, you know. Um, yeah, it's pretty much the same. I mean, if I look back, my set list subject wise aren't that different because I kind of like to stick to the basics of the human experience, you know. I don't really do characters or any kind of fantastical stuff. So I kind of like to just stick to my daily life, and I feel like that gets the biggest laughs because people relate to it more, you know.
Hmm. And what about your years as in the beauty pageants? How did you start off in that, and how did that affect your voice now in comedy?
Yeah, you know, it was kind of a necessary outlet for me at the time. I was like 13 when I got into it, and it was when we had moved from, you know, into a really rural area in South Georgia, and I had done some acting when I was younger, and then moved to an area where there was no opportunity for that. There was no opportunity to act or anything. So we just my school had a pageant. I said, "Mama, I want to do it," and she said, "We don't know anything about pageants." We entered. I won. And that is a drug. I mean, once you get a crown on your head and then they put you in parades, you can't get any better than that. So I was addicted to it. I had to keep doing it. I did it for years, paid for a lot of my college doing pageants. And yeah, getting me comfortable on stage and like being okay with taking a loss. I think that is honestly the thing that I learned the most was being rejected because you can't win everything you're in. You're going to win every now and then, but you're going to lose a lot. And this is the same thing in stand-up comedy. You're not going to kill every set. You're going to bomb some, you know. You got to learn how to take no in stride and then build yourself up and get better and get back out there. And that's, yeah, pageants definitely helped me with learning to be vulnerable and then accepting a loss and coming back stronger the next time, for sure.
What about the talent portion of the pageants? Did you do any comedy for that?
I did actually. I would always do comedic monologues. So it wasn't like the traditional stand up, you know, like telling my jokes like that. It was funny pieces from plays. And I would memorize those and I did those because I always loved being goofy. I would rather be funny on stage than anything else. So, uh, you know, not all the judges cared for it, but I liked doing it.
Hmm.
So.
Well, what you care about is the most important because it's you.
That's right. Exactly. At the end of the day, it's me. I got to be happy with myself, you know, and I got to be proud of the work that I did. So I never minded making myself look silly. Like that was, you know, if me making myself look silly can get a laugh out of the audience, then I'm happy to do it, you know.
Have you ever toured overseas?
Oh, I have not. I want to. I'm actually trying to get to Europe this summer with another comedian friend of mine, and we might actually be putting some shows together. So I'm excited about that. And but I did just 2 weeks ago get to do a corporate gig in the Bahamas,
Hmm.
so that was the closest thing. It was a pretty sweet gig. It was really nice. They put us up in a really nice hotel, and I guess that's the closest thing to performing overseas is going down the Bahamas. So.
Yes. What
Yeah.
about what about audience members? Do they ever give you feedback about your material?
You know, yeah, good most of the time. I mean, I just got back from I was just in a comedy festival in Florida for the past 4 nights and did 8 shows, had so much fun. The best feedback is just, you know, people coming up saying that they had a blast. You know, they're like, we haven't, I had so many people say, oh my God, we haven't laughed that hard in years. Oh my God, I needed that. Oh God, that was so funny. I love the thing you said about such and such because that's exactly how my husband is, or that's exactly how my friends are, or my parents, or my whatever. And that always feels really good because that means you connected to people, you know, and I like relating to people. So yeah, that's the best. I mean, every now and then you get somebody who says something like, you know, I never think women are funny, but I liked you. So you get weird backhanded compliments like that sometimes, and people think that they're complimenting you and they are not. Um, but mostly it's positive. Yeah, if people stop and say something to you after a show, it's generally for them just to say, "Hey, I had a good time and thank you," which is the best thing to say to a comedian after a show. If you didn't like it, keep going. don't come back. You know, you don't have to stop and tell people it's like leaving negative reviews online. Like you don't have to say anything. You can just shut up and don't go back, you know?
When you watch other comedians now, what can you learn from them? What do you learn from them?
Oh gosh, there's always something to learn. I mean, one of my favorite comics of all time is I've got so many favorites, but Sarah Silverman, has been around for 30 something years doing stand up. She's so funny. And she said something in an interview that always stuck with me, which is if you think you have nothing else to learn, then you need to just stop doing stand up comedy because there's always something to pick up. There's always somebody who's doing, something on stage better than you're doing it. There's always somebody doing it longer than you've done it, and you can learn something from their wisdom of dealing with different crowds. Yeah, you should always be paying attention to other comics, especially ones that you are a fan of. If you're a fan, pay attention to why you're a fan. What is it? Are they tighter joke writers? Are they better with crowd work? Are they more natural on stage than you are? Like figure out what they're doing and aim to be smoother on stage. I mean, you shouldn't ever be comfortable exactly with what you're doing because you can always get better.
Mhm.
Always.
And when you mentioned dealing with the audience, what did you mean by that? Is there like sometimes there's some trouble with the audience and then you have to overcome that? What do you mean by dealing with the audience?
Oh yeah, I mean live crowds. That's the best thing about stand up, right? We said earlier with the Zoom versus in real life, you never know what's going to happen, right? You don't know, and people are usually drinking, and you don't know what baggage they're bringing into the room that night. What did they get in a fight on the car, or, in the car on the way there? So you never know what you're going to walk into. People could be talkative, silly, loud, quiet. You can get a couple wild cards in the mix. You don't know. So you've got to be ready to deal with whatever happens. It could all just go perfectly well and everybody laughs and smiles and goes home and it's great. Or something crazy can happen. So you got to be ready. You got to be ready and you got to be able to keep everybody positive while you're doing that. You're trying not to create a riot. You got to make sure you've got it under control. But yeah, it's fun. It's definitely a challenge for sure. But it's a good time. It's a challenge I enjoy.
And some of the material that you reuse, do you find yourself improving upon it or tweaking it in certain situations?
Always. I tell comics this all the time, especially the ones I help with classes, but which is never throw a joke away, ever. If you've got a good joke that works, and you can always make it better. And keep doing it, keep adding to it, keep tagging. You could do a joke 100 times, and it's funny, but then one day you're in Arlington, Texas, and then you tell that same joke, but a guy in the audience says something really funny, and now that's the new part of that joke. So you should all like use them, don't throw them away, tweak them, make them better. Yeah, for sure. Oh, I'm a big fan of doing old stuff and making it better and bringing it back around.
Are you able to give us an example of your work in which you did that?
Oh, well, I guess the best example would be the I'll start with the first joke I ever wrote, which was the joke about my name. Every piece of that it started as like a 1 minute joke, and now when I do the entire thing, I think from beginning to end, it's like 6 or 7 minutes long because of so many things that happened over the years. Somebody would ask me a question or bring something up and it would remind me of another thing. And then I would add a part to this, or somebody would come up to me afterwards, say something to me. And then I was like, that's a good point. And then you change the joke and then you can expand a very simple joke and make it much longer. But yeah.
Hmm. And when you talk with people, what do they give you ideas about about changing your material after you like get the audience feedback? Do you ever tweak your material after speaking with the audience, even if they give you the positive feedback? Do they provide a spark sometimes?
Sometimes, yeah, you should always. I mean, I think all of us comics we're constantly studying people. I mean, we're studying ourselves, we're observing our lives and looking at the way people interact and we're looking for patterns and consistency and things like that and then things that that interrupt that consistency. And so, yeah, if something odd or unusual happens, then yeah, it can spark something new for sure. But I think all of us comics are just always observing. So yeah, for sure. I mean, I write jokes based on things that happen during the day that I just noticed, and I write it down and then turn that into something. So yeah, I mean, we don't look for that. That's definitely not, I would never encourage like audience members to go up to a comic afterward and say, hey, you should be doing this differently or do this instead of this. That's not going to work because all of us are telling jokes from our personal lives, and if
Mm-hmm.
I'm in, like, for instance, I'm going to be in Chicago tomorrow night on February 20th, and I'm going to be at the City Winery. And it's like, I've never been to Chicago before. So I'm excited to
Oh.
be there. Yeah, it's the first time. And I've been touring most of the country. I mean, I've done comedy in 26 states, and I've done it for 12 years, trying to add new states all the time. But for some reason, I've always just kind of never really gotten into Chicago. So it'll be my first time there. And, if somebody afterward was like, oh, you got to do a joke about something, something, something local, it's like, well, thank you, but that's not going to work when I'm in Florida next week. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't, I say leave it to the comics, but yeah, we're always listening and paying attention for sure.
How did you happen to now finally get to Chicago and the Chicago winery?
Yeah, it's just one of those, it's just one of those things. It's not, I didn't avoid trying to get there. It just didn't happen until recently. One of my booker, she reached out to them and said, hey, Lace is, she's available to come through this way. And they said, here's a date. And that was it. And then so it's going to be Chicago, then it's going to be St. Louis. And then I've got like a smaller gig outside of St. Louis later this week in Breeze, Illinois. So, or Breeze or Breezy, somebody's going to correct me, I'm sure. But yeah, pretty excited about being in the Midwest. I've been around. I've been like all around there, but just never right there. So it just finally happened. So hopefully it'll go great, and I'll come back. I would love to come back later this year, even.
Mhm. How long is your show going to be about?
So most comedy shows are an hour and a half. So it'll be me. It'll be a couple of other comics on the show. But yeah, it'll be about an hour and a half show.
And it will start at what time?
That is a great question. I should have had that pulled up for you right now, but let me see. I want to say their shows start at 8, but
Yeah, I think
I want to,
so. Yeah, I can't remember, but I think I saw that too.
8 is the normal start time for a one, like a one show. Okay, no, it says 7:30. So doors will
Okay.
open at 6. Apparently, they'll have good food and drinks and everything there. So doors open at 6 if people want to get there early. And then it should start at 7:30, should be done around 9.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
And what about your first gig? What was that? Oh, it was that one with the beginning. But then, how
Mm-hmm.
did you progress and then add to gigs? So what did you have to have a promoter? Did you do it on your own? Was it a friend network? How were you able to get to where you are now?
Oh, I mean, gosh, we're 12 years in at this point. I've done thousands of shows.
Mhm.
So, when you very first get started, it's a matter of, I mean, I lucked up and had that one guy book me on that first show, but after that, I had to just look around after that and go, okay, where can I get on stage? And yeah, I did my own self-management. Essentially, I'm still doing my own self-management at this point. I now have just recently hired somebody in the last couple months to start pitching me to other people, and so I don't have to do all of the interaction anymore. But so that's nice. It's a nice little weight off my shoulders, and she's doing a great job with that. But yeah, I'm essentially a free agent, and I people, you network over the years, you meet people, you do festivals, you meet people there, and then the next thing you know, you get a message that goes, "Hey, do you want to come through Cincinnati?" And then you say yes, and then you go to Cincinnati, and then you go, "Okay, I've got these 2 weeks open. I want to go to North Carolina, and I want to do this." So you reach out. It's just a lot of networking. It's a lot of word of mouth. And then when you've been doing it long enough, people start to reach out to you, and you get credits and do a bunch of TV stuff, then people start to reach out and go, "Hey, we want you to come here," which is always really nice to hear, that people want you in their towns.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so that's it. It's not very streamlined. It's kind of like any musician, I guess, you kind of just you go where the wind takes you. Um, and I really like it. I like being a different place all the time. So
Mhm. And you're also acting, so that you were already acting before you did
Hmm.
comedy. Mhm.
Yeah.
How's the acting going now?
It's it never was my full-time anything. It was always more of an interest than anything else. It slowed down a lot when I started stand up because I wanted to put full time into stand up. And
Mhm.
nowadays, when I get acting gigs, it's because of stand up. So it's really funny how that like comes full circle, right? Like I used to think that was what I wanted to do in my life is be an actor. Come to find out, I just needed to be myself, and then you'll get booked for just being yourself. So it's good. I love gigs. I get, I get auditions all the time, which is nice. I don't book them all, but I like to at least audition. And I do a lot of, when I do get booked, I get a lot of like reporter host work, which is fine. That's good. But I've played a reporter in a lot of stuff. So that's, yeah, I guess I don't have that good of range for a comp or for an actor. I think I'm just kind of me.
Okay. So reporter host, you mean like at a show you would be reporting on the show and then hosting the show. Is that what
Like no, like playing a reporter, like, and
Oh, okay.
yeah, oh, here we are at the scene of the such and such crime. We're blah 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 blah.
Ah,
The police got here at such and such. Like that's what I mean. Like when, yeah, those acting roles.
got
Those are
it.
the main ones. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Awesome. And then what about AGT? How did you were you recommended? Did you want it? How did you happen to get on it?
Yeah, for sure. They've got a whole bunch of casting directors that go around and are, let artists know that the auditions are coming up and all of that. I had a casting director reach out to me 3 years before I actually got on the show and
Mm,
said, "Hey, would you ever have any interest in auditioning?" And I said, "Sure, I would love to." And then it just didn't work. There was like 3 years they didn't have space for me. And
oh,
then finally they go, "Hey, it looks like we've got some room. We're looking for, we need more female comedians this year." And I said, "Okay, great." And then I got to get flown out to LA and audition for the judges. So it was really cool. It was really cool. I definitely wanted to do it. I was interested in it and was really glad they found me. I had a
mhm,
great time.
mhm.
Yeah.
And what advice would you have for comedians any age?
Yeah. Oh gosh. Just if you want to take it, because you don't have to do comedy full time. I mean, that's the thing, is the majority of people who do it, it's a hobby, it's something they just love. I always say, whether you want to do it for a job or you want to do it just once every few months for your friends, do it because you love it. Like I do it because I have to do it. I don't want to do anything else. This is what I want. um I feel crazy if I don't get on stage. If a few days go by and I haven't been on stage, I feel antsy. I know that this is what I need to be doing. So my advice is, do it as long as you love it, as long as you want to do it. Don't do it if it brings you, if it brings you stress, or if it's, whatever. Like, it should be a fun thing. You should want to do it. And then just get on stage. That's my other thing. People go, "Oh, I did it once and then I'm too scared now." And it's like, well, you get less scared the more you do it. It's just like with anything, you're going to get better the more you do it. So do it. And if you love it, stick to it. Don't stop doing it, and write from your heart, write about your life first. Um, and it'll be more fun on stage for sure.
You mentioned that you perform for your friends as well. Does that mean
Mm-hmm.
that you actually do comedy for your friends, or it's just hanging out and being funny?
Oh yeah, just hanging out, being funny. I mean, for the most part, for me in my life, like, yeah. And then I have a lot of really amazing, dedicated friends who still support me, and still, if I'm doing a gig near them, they'll still come out and see me, even if they've seen me 100 times. Which that's the best feeling in the world, is just having friends who still support it, even if they've heard your jokes, or if you they're so excited if you write a new joke, and they love repeating your old stuff. They love inviting new friends to come see you. Yeah, I'm lucky enough that I got a good solid friend group who still are very much supportive of what I do. So I love that.
When Simon Cowell buzzed you, he said that
Yeah.
he felt that you could you were like holding yourself back, that you could do better. Did you later, when you reflected on it, could you see what he meant by that?
Now that's a whole different situation. So now you're talking about that. But when I was live on there, so I got to be on the show 4 times. That one situation that was, um, he interrupted me before I finished my jokes. So that it was completely unfair. If you interrupt a comic like on their way up to the jokes, you're going to ruin the joke. So it wasn't it never got the laughs it deserved. And you're doing like 2.5 minutes on stage, which is so short. And so if you get interrupted, you can't get the big laugh that you need. So it was a very counterintuitive move on his part for sure. I mean, Simon and I are good. We're friends. We're fine. But looking back, I will forever be annoyed that he interrupted me in the middle of me trying to get to the whole part of the joke. I mean, the punchlines come at the end of the bit. Um, so yeah, to interrupt the flow of what's going on stage, yeah, of course it's not gonna look its best because you stopped it in the middle of it. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Do you kind of understand what his rationale was for doing it, or it's I was surprised by it, but you probably understand it better than I did.
No, I don't think that there was any rationale behind it at all. I think it was I think it was a moment to just create some friction and drama on stage. I think that's what that was. Honestly,
Mm-hmm.
looking back, I don't think it was. I don't think it was a good critique on my stand-up comedy because I've got, that was 2 minutes to show what people come in to see me do for an hour, so it was just no, I don't really. I
Mm-hmm.
think it was more it's still a reality show at the end of the day, so they need drama, they need friction, they need something. They were kind of hoping that I'd go back and forth with him a little bit more and all that. So yeah, I don't take it to heart too much. I think it's just something that happened in the moment, and the whole experience was good. Overall, the experience was great, and
Of course.
I think they gave me the chance to come back and roast Simon, which was really what that moment really led to more than anything was to give a chance for me to come back and actually get the final word in, which is what I needed to do to begin with. I was trying to get my word in before he interrupted me. So
Mhm.
ultimately it worked out really well. But in that moment, I just, it was annoying. But it could have all gone better if I could have finished my damn jokes.
Of
That would have
course.
gone great.
Well, the other judges were defending you, so they like
Yeah,
you.
exactly. And Howie was so cool after, I mean, I'm still in touch with Howie, and now I'm one of the main hosts for the live America's Got Talent show out in Vegas. So I get to still work with them. Not those judges directly, but I get to work with the organization still.
Mhm.
And I love it. I did like 50 plus shows last year in Vegas for America's Got Talent. Um, so yeah, the whole thing worked out really well, but that one moment, I'll probably be annoyed about that for forever.
Yeah, well, nothing is perfect, and then from the imperfection, you probably find another joke for that eventually.
Totally. Oh, it gave me something to talk about. I mean, I'm glad that it happened that way, because then everybody afterwards, like, oh my gosh, Simon Cowell, they got to pick Team Lace or Team Simon, which was pretty funny afterward. But yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think you got a lot more buzz about you after that too.
Yeah, I think so too. If it would have just kind of, if the joke wouldn't have gone, if the joke wouldn't have gone as great as whatever as it was planned, then it could have just fell flat and nothing would have happened. But because of our little back and forth, I think that helped a lot. So it was good.
And of course, the casting director must have seen something very positive in you
Yeah.
to invite you and then return 3 years later. Was it the same casting director or just the
Yeah.
organization?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. It was. So they do a combination. Not everybody. I don't want to put out the. I don't want people to think that the show's just cast. It's not for sure. There's tons of open calls, but there's some of us who, if you're doing what you're doing professionally, some people will reach out and go, "Hey, do you want to do this?" You still have to audition. It's not
Hmm.
like they're not booking you on it. You're still auditioning ultimately, but they
Hmm.
just like to put the buzz in your ear in case it's not on your radar, but they still do open calls. So I don't want, if anybody is listening and they're an amateur at what they do, you can still audition and you
Hmm.
should. And a lot of amateurs in every field get on that show and it changes their lives. So, don't think that you just have to be doing this professionally to get to do a show like that. I say, whenever you're ready, go audition. I think they've got auditions open right now, actually. I think they always have auditions open, actually. They're filming all the time. So
And
I
that's
say
great.
go for it.
And that's great
Yeah.
advice. You never
Yeah.
get anywhere unless you try, and just keep on perfecting. Don't give up.
Hmm. 100%. That is that's exactly what I stand behind. Just don't give up. Keep going, whatever it is.
Lace Larrabee, if our listeners want to learn more about you and find you and see what else you're doing, what should they do?
They should go to, it depends on what they use. If they use Instagram or TikTok or Facebook, you can find me at Lace Larrabee, LaceLarrabee. If you just attempt to find it, you will find me. Just start typing it, you'll find me. There's not any other comedians named Lace. So yeah, that at Lace Larrabee or on Facebook, Lace Larrabee Comedy. And then my website, lacelarrabee.com. I was lucky early on. I got everything under my name to make it really easy for people to find me. So you can find me on there. My website's got all my dates everywhere that I'm going to be. I'm always adding new dates all the time. And if you want me in an area near you, then hit me up and I will make sure I make some shows there. I'll get someone to set it up. But yeah, I'm super excited to be in Chicago on the 20th, which is tomorrow. Hopefully, I hope this is out or we're doing it the same. I don't know. I don't know when they're going to listen to it, but
Yeah, it's live right now. And
oh,
also,
wonderful.
yeah,
Okay,
and
good,
then
good,
we'll
good.
share the interview later too. We'll put
Oh,
it up on
good.
our YouTube.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, awesome. So yeah, if they want to come out the Tuesday, February 20th, City Winery in Chicago. I don't know how far out your listenership is, but I know St. Louis isn't that far away. I'm going to be in St. Louis the 21st, so the very next day at the City Winery in St. Louis as well. And like I said, it's my first time coming through, so I don't think ticket sales are super high right now. Um, but I would love anybody who's listening to come out. I would love to see all your faces and chat with you after the show and see if maybe they got any advice.
And what about City Winery? Did they connect with you, or did your person connect with them? How did the connection happen?
I mean, I've worked at city wineries before, and it's all different in every city. They're booked different ways. But yeah, I
Mm.
think my booker reached out to them to say, hey, Lace wants to come through. So, I think that's how that situation worked out. But yeah, it all depends on where I am for who knew who and who reached out first and all that good stuff. But yeah, this week should be really fun.
And also, do guests need to RSVP, or could they just arrive?
They can buy tickets at the door for sure. Yeah, they can do it online or buy them at the door.
Okay. Lace Larrabee, thank you so much for joining us on WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM today, and good luck to you. And maybe we'll talk again in the future.
Thank you so much. This was so pleasant. This was a very lovely conversation. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks.